Timothy Egan's A Fever in the Heartland, the Ku Klux Klan's plot to take over America, and the Woman Who Stopped Them, 2023, offers a vivid chronicle of the Klan's swift but spectacular resurgence in 1920s Indiana. Drawing on exhaustive research and the atmospheric pacing of a crime thriller, Egan reconstructs a grim era in the nation's past. At the center of his account stands David C. Stephenson, a charlatan and manipulator who capitalized on the anxieties and prejudices of white middle America to crown himself ruler of a spreading empire, and Madge Oberholtzer, the woman whose bravery ultimately brought him down. Egan, a longtime journalist for the New York Times, earned a Pulitzer Prize in 2001 for his reporting on race relations in the United States. In the turbulent aftermath of the Civil War, a violent network took shape from the defeated but defiant Confederacy. The Ku Klux Klan, KKK, or the Klan, masked enforcers draped in white robes, committed lynchings and brutal assaults to ensure that formerly enslaved people would never stand as equals to white citizens. President Ulysses S. Grant deployed federal authority to dismantle this early version of the Klan, but the victory would not endure. In 1921, Stephenson, an itinerant wanderer with a fabricated past, relocated to Indiana, where he sensed a chance for status and influence within a reborn Klan. When the federal government withdrew from the South in 1876, allowing Jim Crow laws to flourish, generations of disenfranchisement took root, and Stephenson envisioned spreading the Klan's power into the northern states. Teaming up with Hiram Evans, a dentist from Dallas, he stoked fears of Black Americans, immigrants, Catholics, drinking, and shifting cultural norms, signing up tens of thousands into what they marketed as an invisible empire, selling it not as bigotry, but as the defense of Americanism. In a nation still haunted by the trauma of civil war, scapegoating racial outsiders became a formula for explosive growth. Stephenson's charisma and talent for persuasion quickly elevated him into the organization's upper ranks. Once installed, he siphoned dues and initiation fees to build staggering personal wealth. Within only a few years, the man who began life in poverty transformed himself into a millionaire. He also reshaped the Klan's image, replacing its identity as nocturnal terrorists with that of a righteous, Protestant-aligned fraternity committed to safeguarding its own imagined version of the nation. The rebranding captivated white middle America, and the Klan's influence soon radiated outward from Indiana into Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, an unprecedented expansion. Stephenson's ambition for a national Klan woven into every layer of civic life seemed increasingly within reach. At the same time, Madge Oberholtzer, an idealistic young woman from Irvington, Indiana, worked for a publicly funded literacy initiative. When the program came under threat of defunding, she sought support wherever she could, including from Indiana's Grand Wizard. Stephenson continued bolstering the Klan's religious authority by courting the country's most prominent evangelist, Daisy Douglas Barr, and bribing Protestant pastors to preach Klan values from their pulpits. By associating hatred with piety, he rendered the movement respectable. He then turned toward governing institutions, directing followers, votes, and bribing office holders to enact punitive laws aimed at Black people, Catholics, and Jews. His spiraling violence and alcoholism alienated Evans, who feared Stephenson was tarnishing the Klan's polished facade. Yet Stephenson's political reach shielded him, and despite numerous assaults, he remained untouched by law enforcement. Even as the Klan's numbers surged, dissenting voices emerged. Attorney Patrick O'Donnell and editor George Dale were among the few willing to speak out. O'Donnell launched his own newspaper and gathered proof of widespread Klan misconduct, but his warnings were ignored. Dale suffered a similar fate, crushed financially under Stephenson's legal retaliation. With the backing of Protestant churches and the pseudo-scientific endorsement of eugenics, the Klan appeared unstoppable. Stephenson set his sights first on the Senate, then on the White House. With O'Donnell discredited after printing falsified evidence and Dale ruined, and having severed ties with Evans's national hierarchy, Stephenson believed himself untouchable. One night, Stephenson summoned Oberholtzer to his residence. She arrived to discover she was the only woman among drunken, armed men. Stephenson abducted her, forced her onto a train to Chicago, and before a witness, brutally raped and beat her. He imprisoned her in a hotel, denying her contact with her mother. In despair, Oberholtzer ingested poison. Stephenson transported her back to Irvington and confined her in a room above his garage until her screams risked exposure. He returned her to her family home and abandoned her. A doctor was called, but her injuries and poisoning were beyond remedy. Nearly a month later, she died from toxic damage and infection resulting from Stephenson's attacks. Her death sparked a criminal inquiry, and determined prosecutor William Remy set out to topple Indiana's most powerful figure. Using Oberholtzer's deathbed testimony, the state secured a conviction for second-degree murder. Stephenson received a life sentence, and the verdict, combined with cascading scandals, caused the Klan's influence to collapse, leaving it a hollow remnant of its former dominance. At 70, Stephenson was paroled and faded into anonymity. He died at 74 in a small Tennessee town. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.